We have finally made it, Jets fans. The first official padded practice is in the books as we inch closer to the 2025 season. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rich Sports Talk, your home for all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets. Of course, if you can't check us out during the live stream on YouTube, make sure to check us out wherever podcasts are available. If you can listen to us on a podcast, you can listen to us on one of those apps. And, of course, if you want to donate to the channel or jump to the front of the line, use that super chat feature to make a donation to the channel as we look to grow this channel out, but also to jump to the front of the line. So there is a nice little benefit to you as well. So the first official padded practice for Aaron Glenn is in the books. And there's been a lot I've thought about this training camp. Last time we came on, we were worried about obviously the health of Justin Fields, which seems to be going in the right directions as seeing he participated in 11 on 11s in full pads today. So it seems like the Justin Fields issue is really not an issue at all, which is good at this point. But for me, when I look at teams and when I look at cultures, many times we think it's the big changes. It's the big changes that lead to the biggest results. Usually, though, if you want real deep change at a deep level within an organization, especially that has had the trouble like the Jets have had, you need to see it in the small areas. You need to see it in those little differences that make the Jets stand out. And there's been a couple of things that Aaron Glenn and the staff have done, which I have really approved of and I have been really high on. The first of that is referees at practice and pretty much at every practice. The Jets, as we know, for the last decade have been one of the most penalized teams in the National Football League. So having refs at these practices, I think, is very important, not just because you get an idea of where they're going to be on the field, the positioning, but also some of the emphases of the NFL. We see it every year. There's different rules, but they change the emphasis of the rule. So having that feedback, like especially if you're like, let's say a corner and you get called for a pass interference, you can shoot with the ref. What was I doing? Was it the hand positioning? Was it how I was grabbing him? What time did the penalty occur? Those little nuances are incredibly important. And the Jets, from what Aaron Glenn has said, is they haven't had referees at practice. You hear the players have been talking up this coaching staff, and it really is an indictment on the last coaching staff, who by the end of last year, we pretty much knew this was one of the, if not the worst coach team in the NFL. And you just hearing from camp, like Will McDonald with a bull rush. Apparently, like Robert Saleh didn't realize he had a bull rush in his pocket. Aaron Glenn was asked about it, and Aaron Glenn said, hey, he's got a bull rush. And we didn't see it. Well, they didn't ask him to do that last year. There's a lot of little things, too, that I like what this team is doing in terms of accountability. A great example actually happened in practice today with Jeremy Ruckert. Jeremy Ruckert was called for offsides on the offense, or I think it was a false start. But instantly, they pulled him out of the drill. That, to me, is accountability. And that's one of the things that we as Jet fans have been screaming out for a long time, is having accountability for a team. And it seems like, too, this is going to be a much more physical team. I understand with the NFL, especially this time of year, when you are a fan base in training camp, the biggest thing you want to have is going to the season and being healthy. And I feel like a lot of teams have gone the approach of let's lighten it up as much as possible. And especially under Robert Saleh, they went with very light practices. That is not the case with Aaron Glenn. They are hitting hard. They're going full speed, going 100 miles an hour. And to me, I almost think that that's the right way. Injuries are going to happen in the National Football League. But if you are able to get those, quote, scars early in camp, it's like building muscles. You have to get a tolerance for it, and you have to get that tolerance back. So the more you're able to be out there physically, the more punishment you're able to take, the better off you will be in the regular season. Other couple things I've really liked about these practices, too, is the emphasis on this team is going to be blitzing. You're going to see a very different defense this year. If you were someone that wanted Rex Ryan back or someone like Rex Ryan back, I think you're going to get that. You're going to see a hyper-aggressive defense, and you're going to see the Jets coming from all angles. And to me, the two biggest beneficiaries of this scheme could be the linebacking core. Jamien Sherwood and Quincy Williams, we know how good they are at getting downhill and how fast they are and how great of a first step they have. they can struggle in coverage at times, but the few times where they actually were able to blitz under the Robert Saleh scheme, they were very successful. Now, you wonder how they're going to be utilized in this package, but I feel like you're going to see them coming from off the edges at times, up the middle at times. I think you're going to see a lot of pressure from Quincy Williams and also from Jamien Sherwood in the linebacking core. And I also think you're going to see a lot of safety blitzes. You've heard it all throughout the practices. They're blitzing everyone. They're blitzing corners. They're blitzing safeties. And to me, those are going to be effective plays, and it also gets more people involved and makes people feel like they're getting more involved in the defense. One of the most memorable plays of Sauce Gardner's career has been a blitz, the blitz where he was able to force the safety. I mean, this is someone that you look at Sauce Gardner being 6'4", having that great first step. I wouldn't mind him coming off the edge a couple times potentially. He can do that. We've seen him do it in the past. So I'm really excited to see what this defense really looks like early on. And there's been some standouts on the defensive side as well. One was specifically mentioned was Malachi Moore, the safety that they drafted. Now, when they drafted Malachi, I said Malachi was going to push for the starting safety job. And when you heard about how glowingly Aaron Glenn was talking about him and saying how good of a player he's going to be in this league, it's clear he is one of the guys that this team is really high on really early. Now, do I think Malachi Moore is going to start every snap from day one? Probably not. But he's definitely a name I'm keeping an eye on through this training camp. And I think he could be a dark horse starter for this team, especially at the safety position. We've heard that Will McDonald's having an unbelievable camp, which is great, especially when you have an ascending first-round pass rushing talent like him. Some other big notes, of course, the biggest one is that Justin Fields was involved in practice today. That, to me, is the biggest one, that he's out there. Of course, Aaron Glenn, when I was talking about Malachi Moore, quote, he's going to be a hell of a player in this league. And another player who's really high is Braylon Allen. Braylon Allen, big physical, workman-like mentality. He's looked really good in camp. I think he's going to be a great 1-2 punch with Breece Hall. I do think that one of the big things with Malachi Moore has had a couple nice hits, including on Xavier Gipson today. Now, the one interesting position battle that is really frustrating teams right now, I think frustrating the Jets fan, is definitely going to be the kicking competition, which hasn't been great. But reinforcements could be on the way. It reported a couple of hours ago from Brian Costello. The Jets are having Nick Folk. If you remember, Folk kicked with the Jets from 2010 to 2016. He will be having a tryout. Now, again, Folk, I don't think is a horrible option. You know, he's not going to give you much in terms of the range like Zuerlein did. Never had a big leg in his career, but highly accurate kicker. So he could be someone that I could definitely see being there as well. I look at also this team, too. One thing I also really like what they're doing is they're doing O-line, D-line, one-on-one drills. I think that is great because you get a lot of good work. It creates a friendly competition within the camp. And it's something that they even said the previous regime didn't do. And it also gives you an opportunity to really focus on the player in front of you, really focus on, okay, are they beating me with the star step? Are they beating me with speed? Are they beating me with power? And for me, that is something that's really good and shows that this level of coaching has gotten better, because one of the biggest critiques we've heard about this offensive line room has been the lack of coaching. Like, if you were to say, what is probably the one unit that has been undercoached for the Jets, especially under Robert Saleh, it would have been the offensive line. You felt like this offensive line was not getting great production. You felt like this offensive line was not being really upgraded. And again, they had some promising young players, but it just always felt like guys like Max Mitchell, they just never really reached their potential. And the only ones that really were established were guys that had been with the previous coach like AVT, or guys that had played other places like John Simpson. So I do think like this is a really good sign too. Like, you see it from all the beat writers too, for people that have covered this team for a long time. I mean, we're talking back to the Rex Ryan era. They said this was the most physical practice they've seen in a long time. And I think that is a very good thing, because the other thing too with the Jets is, I think the Jets have talent. I think they have more talent than people want to give them credit for. But one thing the Jets, I think, can win with this year is toughness. If they can be a physical team, I feel like the Jets are going to be a team that by the time you get to week 7 or week 8, Yes, the Jets might not have the prettiest record. Yes, the Jets might not have the offensive statistics. Yes, the Jets might not be the most attractive team to watch. But I'll tell you this, the way I'm watching them practice, the way I feel Aaron Glenn's going to handle this defense, this is going to be a team that no one is going to want to play because they're going to fight you for 4 quarters. They're going to be physical on the offensive line. They're going to come at all angles on this defense, and they are going to make quarterbacks' lives hell, and they're going to be a team that is going to run the ball, I really believe, down people's throat. And I really do think this could be a big breakout season for Braylon Allen. I think he is going to be relied on heavily in this offense, especially with his size and physicality and how he can physically punish the defense. But of course, if you guys have any questions, your thoughts from early camp, your thoughts on some of the movement around the league, would love to take some of your questions. Again, jump in on the live stream, use the super chat feature to jump to the front of the line. Now, the other big thing, too, I think with the Jets, where I'm really going to be curious because we're not going to see a lot, I think, of the exotic blitzes from this team. I don't think we're going to see a really exotic-looking defense out there in the preseason. I don't think the Jets are going to reveal what they're doing. But I am curious to see how certain players from the previous regime are utilized and how they are brought in, because especially last year's rookie class is very intriguing to me, because with turnover, there always are guys that just don't fit because they were drafted by a regime. And I think a great example of this was, unfortunately, when Robert Saleh took over from Adam Gase. We all know the 2020 draft class was an absolute mess. But part of the reason what made it messier for this Jet team is you had a coach with a completely different ideology than the new staff. And when I look at this team, like especially on the defensive side, I think this is a team that's going to look more man for corner. They're going to want physical corners. They're going to want to come off on the edges. They're going to want to blitz. A couple of guys I'm very interested in seeing how they fit. One guy in particular is Quantez Stiggers. Now, again, there's footage out there of him having a nice breakup in practice today. This was someone that I feel like last year we felt that this was someone that could have really pushed to be at the top of the list in terms of someone that was going to be a dark horse starter. But I was curious when, especially Aaron Glenn became the new coach, and you've seen already that we've heard a lot of rumblings that, Brandon Stevens is actually having a really good start to camp. Azeez from Florida State looks really good. You kind of felt, where is Quantez going to fit on this roster? Is he going to be one of these guys that eventually doesn't make it through this camp? One thing I thought with two, and one thing I'm going to watch especially during this preseason, is where does he line up? Because if you remember when he came out of college, he also played safety. I wonder if this is going to be one of these players that will he transition to the safety position. Now, again, even with this draft class, we've already seen a couple of guys already bounce. Jordan Travis with his injury, Jalen Key, Isaiah Thomas is still on the team, Braylon Allen. I mean, the other guy that's going to really be intriguing is going to be Malachi Corley, and I'll get to him in a second. But for Stiggers, I'm very curious to see if he is just going to be the corner, just be a corner on this team. How many corners will this team look to carry on game day? Because that also plays a key part in a lot of this. When you're building out a roster, you're trying to figure out realistically, what are you going to bring on game day? One of the big discussions, I think, especially with this team, is going to be certain personnel. Like, is this a team that's going to carry 4 running backs because they're going to run the ball a lot more? Are they going to carry 3 to 4 tight ends? Are they only going to carry 5 receivers? So when I look at stuff like that, I am very curious to see where Quantez fits, because don't forget, too, this staff has already made a major investment in the cornerback room, and we didn't necessarily think they needed to make that investment. keep in mind when we were in the draft, again, I do like the pick that they made in the third round with Azie Thomas, but we didn't think they'd go corner, especially because you look at Michael Carter's already on this team and invested. We knew Sauce was going to get a bag. Brandon Stevens, they made a $12 million investment. Azie Thomas, obviously. I mean, that's 4 players right there that not only have the Jets invested in the cornerback position, but they have significantly invested. So then the question turns into, well, then how do you build out the rest of this roster? Because right now with that 5th corner spot or 6, okay, they have Chris Boyd from Houston, who's competing as an undrafted. They have in the nickelback Isaiah Oliver, who's been here before. Then they have Jarek Bernard-Converse. And don't forget, Bernard-Converse also has a little bit of safety versatility. So that's someone that's going to maybe make the roster because, yeah, they're our 5th corner, but then they can also take the spot of a 4th safety so they don't have to carry an extra safety that day. There's going to be some intriguing battles in camp. That, to me, is one of them. Another intriguing one, to me, is going to be the interior, is the middle linebacker. Jamin Davis has apparently been on the field a lot, especially with Sherwood and Quincy Williams. I still think you're going to see a lot more 4-2-5, maybe 3-3-5, 3-4 looks with this team on the defense. I mean, Brian Coward, who they brought over the D tackle from Chicago, was talking about how much talent was on this defensive line. And again, I do think there is some talent, but I'm interesting to see, especially at the edge position, because you have guys like McGregor and Watts who were undrafted players last year. You have Michael Clemens, everyone's favorite. I'm really curious to see who's going to step up, especially because with Jermaine Johnson, especially coming off the injury, the Jets are going to slow play him. They're not going to overdo it, and they're not going to push him out on the field too early. But again, guys, if you have comments or you have any idea, or if you have any comments or any players you'd like to talk about in particular, you can put that in the live stream now. Again, chat is open. If you want to put your chats in, do it now. If you want to jump to the front of the line or make a donation, use that super chat feature to do just that. I am very curious, too, on the offensive side, how this depth is going to figure it out. I think everyone talks about the wide receiver position. I'm a little bit more intrigued, to be honest with you, in the tight end room, because the tight end room, I think, can go a lot of different ways. We know Mason Taylor right now is the higher investment. And if you were to ask me who's going to be the number 1 tight end by the end of the year, it's going to be Mason Taylor. But to start the season, will he be up to speed? Will he be ready to go from day one? Which then begs the question, can Jeremy Ruckert establish himself as a solid number 2? Stone Smart, who they've taken an opportunity with the Chargers, is out there. I mean, I was beating the table last week for Noah Fant just because I look at the production. Noah Fant's had more yards in a NFL season on average than Ruckert and Smart have had in the NFL in their 3 years careers combined. So I'm very intrigued with how this team's going to use the tight ends, but what the pecking order for the tight ends are going to be. Because this was a position, if I'm going to be completely honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, I thought this was a position that the Jets were going to double dip in the draft. I thought they'd take a flyer on the tight end in round 3, or at the very least, I think the biggest surprise to me of the undrafted pool was that they didn't take an undrafted tight end. Like, to me, I was like, okay, I would bring in someone to at least compete a little bit, because you look right now, who's the 410 of the Jets? It's Zach Kuntz, who's been on the practice squad for 2 years. So I don't know how that's going to play into it. I'm fascinated to see, once we get into games, what the pecking order for tight ends is. Again, I think Mason Taylor will get reps in the preseason, but probably a series or 2. Jeremy Ruckert. And now the funny thing too is, and again, you can use the comment section to ask your questions for the live stream today. I think the other big question too is, in a weird way, if a guy doesn't play in the preseason, does that mean that the Jets view them as a key piece to the season? But again, we also have Aaron Glenn, who apparently really loves the physical practices, the padded practices, the opportunity to compete. I do think you're going to see a lot of these guys play, especially the second and third stringers. I mean, guys like Garrett Wilson probably won't get a lot of reps. maybe some of the guys on the offensive line might not get a ton of reps, but I do think they're going to try to get Armand enough reps in the preseason. I think Arian Smith is going to get a lot of reps. I think one, and I mentioned him earlier, Malachi Corley will be a fascinating one. I do want to see him used on the kick returns, see how he does in that role. But if Malachi Corley doesn't get a lot of reps, it's basically the coaching staff telling you they don't think he's not only good enough to get reps in the preseason, but they don't view him as a long-term option, because that might be some of the best opportunity for Malachi Corley to get solid reps in the preseason. If he's not getting them there, I mean, where's he going to get them? So that will definitely be another position to keep an eye on. Again, I'm a bit of a nerd. I'm also kind of interested to see how the offensive line rotation figures out. I mean, Carter Warren, we know, has been someone that the Jets, the previous regime, was high on. Is he someone that's going to be the fourth tackle? Because we know Chukwuamu is going to be the swing tackle, probably the backup right tackle to Menbu. And then Max Mitchell, I mean, last regime made him a guard. I'm curious to see how much he's lining up at guard. Again, you don't see as much with the offensive line talk in the practice. So I'm very curious to see. I'm also curious to see how much playing time Fields gets. I'm assuming Fields might not go in the first game if the toe's an iffy, but I feel like he at least will get a drive or two in two of the games. Tyrod Taylor, I don't think is going to play at all, maybe a series or two, just because, again, he's their backup. So the question is, how many reps does Adrian Martinez get, Brady Cook get at the quarterback position? If they're your primary quarterbacks, then the problem you also run into then is how much evaluation of the wide receivers can you honestly get, having basically the camp arms being the ones passing the football. Again, ladies and gentlemen, live stream is open. Again, make sure to like and subscribe us wherever podcasts are available. If you want to ask your preseason questions or your thoughts on the first Jets padded practice, the comment section is wide open. Again, super chat to jump to the front of the live. We'd love to hear your comments or thoughts around the league. I know that there has been a lot of talk. And now, an interesting development also I think could impact the Jets is that basically coming out of Steelers camp that the Steelers made an intriguing release today. So I have been on this channel saying that one of my predictions is that Al Lazard likely is not going to be here, because I was under the impression that he was going to be traded. And I felt he was going to be traded even before the preseason. But a couple hours ago, Cordell Patterson, again, more of a running back, but was with the Steelers, and they released him. And not only did they release him, they did it on their off day. So that is definitely something as well. I know a lot of people will probably ask this question again. If you want to bring this up, I will bring it up now, but I feel like someone's going to bring it up in the chat at least some point today. Christian Wilkins for the Raiders. I know a lot of people are going to say, well, the defensive tackle room is awfully thin. Should the Jets take a shot? And my opinion is I wouldn't right now. There's too much smoke around him. You don't know what's going on with that locker room. Again, I don't think we've gotten the full story about what happened in that locker room. But the other thing they said, too, is this is a guy with a significant foot injury, and it's not healing the way they were hoping. So if I am the Jets, I would make sure I wouldn't go after him. I would just let it be. I would not touch that guy. I'd still be looking out there this week. And again, I still feel that there is definitely going to be some intriguing defensive tackles that will get cut. I do think there will be defensive tackles that will slip through the cracks. We see it all the time. John Franklin Myers, I think, is one of the best examples. I think the Jets will take a shot on one of them. But you look at this Jet team, I feel like this is going to be a team that is more disciplined. They're not going to give as many turnovers. And I do think that this is a team that will be prepared. Because I look at the little things. Like, the Jets have always had issues with penalties under Saleh. But they didn't think in the multiple years, let's get more refs in practice, get more ref feedback, get them practicing like, okay, this is a game situation. This is what we need to work on. But they didn't do that. This team has been terrible at tackling for years. I mean, how many times have we seen these safeties whiff on tackles? And what are they doing? They're putting a big emphasis on tackling one-on-one today. They are making sure that they are becoming a good tackling team. Again, I don't think the Jets are going to be the most talented team. I think that's obvious in the NFL. But the Jets don't have to be the most talented team to make the playoffs. You know what's killed the Jets, especially the last 3 years under Robert Saleh? It wasn't the talent. It was the little things. It was coaching. It was bad play calling. It was bad judges and errors, basically mental mistakes. It was bad preparation. It was just terrible situational awareness. It was lack of fundamentals. It was poor tackling. I mean, we probably, if you're you Jet fans in the chat, you guys probably, when I said a missed tackle, there's probably a play or two that popped instantly into your mind like, oh God, like I remember that distinctly. The Jets, the last couple of years, and this is where I think a lot of the frustration has come from. Before Joe Douglas got here, you could make the case, yes, the Jets are not a talented football team. They shouldn't be competing. But the last couple of years, with the talent this team has, it was on the coaching. It was on the fundamentals. It was not being able to take accountability. That, to me, was also one of the biggest things, too, and one of the biggest worries why I felt like they had to get this coaching hire right and why Aaron Rodgers was let go. It's accountability. Accountability is a big thing on this team. And for the last 2 years, you've had a leader in Aaron Rodgers that wasn't accountable. He would say one thing and then go on McAfee and go do a complete 180, and it would be a completely different form of accountability. It's not me, it's the coaching. Well, it's not me, I don't have enough receivers. Well, it's not me, it's the offensive line. It's everything but Aaron Rodgers' fault. And may I remind people that Aaron Rodgers, 8 of his touchdowns came in 2 games where one team basically quit and one team didn't have a pass defense in Jacksonville. And the Jets still won 5 games. So to me, just the little things. This team was not held accountable the last 2 years. In practices, you mess up, guess what? You're out of the drill. We saw it with Jeremy Ruckert today, and I think that's great. This is a team that's been a bad tackling team, bad form tackling. How many times have we seen plays that should be dead and the guy breaks a tackle and gets the first down and we pull our hair out? The Jets are focusing on that. They are working on that. We've talked about the development of this offensive line, how this offensive line doesn't feel like it's grown, especially the younger players. They're doing one-on-one battles. They're getting physical. They're really working on with great defensive tackles. I mean, what is going to give, especially in this offensive line, you want Olu Fashanu and you want Armand Menbu to reach their potential as soon as possible. Have them go up against Quinnen Williams multiple times in practice. Have them go up against Will McDonald multiple times in practice. When Jermaine's healthy, have them go up against Jermaine Johnson multiple times in practice. Those are some of the best guys at what they do in the National Football League. If they can handle that, they should be able to handle 85, 90% of what this league is going to throw at you. And the other big thing, too, is I look at there's competition. I mean, I think Malachi Moore is going to push to be the starting strong safety for this team. I think there's going to be a couple of guys that will surprise us on who's going to get reps, who's going to be a major player on this team. But again, it's all coaching. And the big thing with Aaron Glenn is he doesn't care what the media narratives are. He doesn't care what people are saying. He doesn't care about the previous coaching staff. He's going to do it his way. He's going to go to practice. They're going to practice hard. And at the end of the day, they're going to work hard at practice. They're going to be physical at practice. And it's like I said, I don't think the Jets are going to be the prettiest watch this year. I think that's pretty clear. But I do get this feeling, and I really do believe this. The Jets might be an 8-win team this year. They might be a 7-win team. But I'll tell you this. When it's November, there's going to be a lot of teams, even great teams. Yeah, you might beat the Jets, but they're going to be a physical team. They're going to be in your face all game long. They're not going to make the dumb mistakes that they've been making, or that's what we're at least hoping for. And I do think this is going to be a physical football team. This is going to be a team that's going to play with their hair on fire on defense. They're going to come at you at every different angle. And I do think this is going to be a team that you're going to see there's some talent at multiple levels of this team. I do think you're going to see a bounce back year for Sauce. I think you're going to see an offense that can function and move the football. But again, my initial thoughts from the first padded practice, I like how the Jets are practicing. I like how hard they're going. I like how physical they are being at practice and how they are embracing the competition. And for me, and I said this at the start of the show today, when we look for changes and when you need institutional changes, many times I think we think it's one big change that will fix everything. It's not. It isn't. If you want to make long, impactful change, the way that you do it is small changes, and many of them in tweaks. And I see that happening. Aaron Glenn says he wants a disciplined team. What's he doing about it? He's getting referees at practice. He's having them watch this team, and he's getting feedback. Because now he can get an idea of what the NFL is looking to call this year, what the emphasis will be. Because this is also time for the referees too. What a lot of people don't understand is this is the time of year where refs are getting together all the way down to the high school level. And they are going over the new rules. They're going over the new techniques. They're going over what they are looking for and what the key emphasis will be on in the upcoming season. Because it changes. You learn from the previous years. You adapt. The league has certain priorities that they want to get across. And at least with these refs, you're getting feedback. So if you're like a guy like Sauce Gardner and you like to grab, it's okay to grab for this amount of yards, but it's not okay to grab here. You can put the hand position here, but you can't put the hand position there. That is invaluable feedback. This has also been a team that for years we've criticized them on their poor tackling technique and bad tackling. And what are they doing? They are making an emphasis on tackling in practice. And the last thing that's really standing out to me is the offensive line and the defensive line. They're going at it one-on-one. And one of the biggest things I have always said about this team, especially with the last coaching staff, when they brought in arguably the worst offensive line coach in the league, I said, there's talent in this room. And I just worry that the talent isn't being utilized correctly by this offensive line coach. Because, yes, I've seen flashes from Joe Tippmann, but I think Joe Tippmann has the potential to be an all-pro interior lineman. I think AVT took a lot of stuff from the previous regime, but also, again, he's dealing with a lot of health issues. Olu, again, just was a plug-and-play left tackle. You don't get a lot of that. To me, this could be a really good offensive line this year if they are coached up. And more importantly, it's not about necessarily the starting five. It's if a guy goes down, which will likely happen at some point, can Carter Warren or someone like Max Mitchell come in and not be a liability? Because let's face it, when they did last year, they were liabilities. And I'm not trying to pick on them. I know a lot of it could have been the coaching, but they were liabilities. Let's call the spade in that situation. So I look at this early feedback from this camp, and to me, it has been fantastic. I love the physicality, I love the speed they're practicing, and more importantly, I love that Justin Fields is participating in the 11-on-11s because let's be honest, just a couple of days ago, there was about a 2-hour period where every Jet fan was going, you've got to be kidding me. But luckily, it's worked out. And we will be bringing you so much more training camp coverage. And, of course, don't forget, this channel is special because after every single Jets home game and away, I don't know why I keep saying it. It's every single Jets game. I keep doing that Freudian slip. My apologies, ladies and gentlemen. After every single Jets game, we will be coming on the air to discuss everything. And that includes the preseason, guys. We don't take anyone's off. So we're going to be here. We're going to break down all the action from the New York Jets preseason games. We're going to break down all the action from every single regular season game. We'll come on live. We'll get your thoughts on the game, my breakdown of the analysis. And, of course, if there is breaking Jets news, we will bring it to here on this channel. So make sure you like and subscribe because you don't want to miss any of our great content. Check our community pages for all the latest trends going on the page and also some recent polls so we can get your feedback on what you'd like to watch. And again, if you missed the live show, don't worry about it. You can catch the full shows on YouTube or wherever podcasts are available. Thank you, everyone, for joining us here. We'll see you next time on Rich Sports Talk.